Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Riffhard podcast. Forgive me. I know I'm going to mispronounce this, but our guest today is Mr. Keyan Houshmand. And I'm excited about this because he's exactly what I refer to as the modern definition of being a musician. Um, you know, I think that the definition of being a modern musician is always changing. It's changing with the landscape. Back in the day, you had to just be good at networking and playing. Then it became, you kind of have to know a little bit about recording. Then eventually also video got added into that. And so nowadays, to be a professional musician, a modern professional musician, it involves being great at your instrument, but also having a handle on recording, having a handle on video, having a handle on social media, and knowing how to work all those things together. It's lots of hats to wear, but that is what it takes. And he is really great at all of this. His YouTube is growing like crazy, as is his Instagram. And the content he makes is just, it's fantastic. And he's very inspiring. So let's get on with it. Keyan, welcome to the Riffhard podcast.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, we were having a conversation before this started that I felt like should just be recorded. But you were actually asking me questions, but I want to know your take on it. So the context is that I supposedly was finished recording for the Doth record on last Friday. Today's Tuesday. And then today I discovered that a whole section of a song was just not recorded. And so we were talking about getting into recording mode and out of recording mode and having to snap into it after like thinking you're done. And what I was getting ready to say was I did something different this time than usual. Usually when I'm done recording, I take a break. Like I don't want to think about guitar, nothing. This time I just decided I was going to keep the momentum going and just keep practicing, no days off, just keep going. Because after the studio or something, you're at your best. It's like, why let that go? Like you're at this peak in your playing after you've recorded. I feel, at least I've noticed.
That's such a good point now that you bring it up. I've never thought about it that way, but hearing it like that makes a lot of sense.
Why let it go?
Yeah, no, it's you put yourself in this mindset. You spend so long getting into like quote unquote recording mode, and then like after it's done, you just kind of drop it. Now that you're saying it like that, it makes no sense at all. But I do that as well. I think it's kind of just like out of sight, out of mind. Like you don't want to let it kind of take over your daily routine or whatever. And really, because like being in like a recording mindset, I find does take a lot mentally. Like physically, whatever, playing it is fine. You kind of like, as you hit like record and stop all the time, you kind of get into the same rhythm and your hands start moving the same. But mentally, just being on all the time while you're recording, tuning guitars, tuning chords within themselves all the time, like it's a lot. So like kudos for actually like just being able to keep practicing and like jump straight back into it, because I don't know if I could do that for sure.
Well, thanks. It's the hyper focus. You're right. Like the hyper focus is very mentally taxing. But I feel like even if you're not in that mode necessarily, the physical part of it, you can keep that going, and you can keep like the aspects of the routine going that will help you maintain your level, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find yourself like when you're in quote unquote recording mode? Because I know I have to do this. Like when I'm just playing, I play a lot harder than I should be for recording, like to the point where I need to like tame myself to kind of make sure that everything is consistent.
Yep. Yeah. It was so with playthroughs too, actually. I've noticed like, the playthroughs that I do for Riffhard, those are actual playthroughs. They're not mimes. And none of the playthroughs that are done by any guitar players on Riffhard are mimes. So like mimed. So like you got to actually play it. And I mean, newsflash for people, if you don't know, most playthroughs are not actually played.
Oh, for sure.
Most playthroughs are mimed, and there's lots of reasons for that. But if you're going to actually play it and like record, you need to kind of like get comfortable. And I've noticed that the first few takes, I'm just like playing way too hard, way too tense, like way just like too like amplified, I guess.
Oh, for sure. And like I've noticed it as well. Like when I'm doing a playthrough for like a more music video style shoot where I'm just playing to the track, but like I just find myself picking so much harder because you want to kind of give off that like performance-y type thing where it really looks like, can I swear on this?
Yeah. Say whatever the fuck you want.
Like
whatever you fucking want.
All right, noted. Just like playing the absolute shit out of your guitar, for lack of a better term. But then like when you watch it back, like after like a 4 minute straight of playing through my own song when I'm filming, I'm like, oh my God, like what is going on with my wrist? Like I think it's just because you just want to be playing to the loudness of the track that you're hearing if you're like quote unquote miming it. But you're right, like playing it for real and actually doing a proper guitar playthrough, it's like a whole different headspace. And all of a sudden it's like you're actually turning into a real guitarist for a second and trying to play things as well just as you can. Yeah. And then after that, you can just beat the shit out of your guitar. It's fine.
It's interesting because like I've noticed too that sometimes during playthroughs, I'm excited because I like what I'm playing. Like sometimes it's like the first time that I've really like listened to it like that, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to explain. And so it's like exciting if it sounds sick. But interestingly enough, like people talk about like, you got to play hard enough and there's a lot of emphasis placed on not playing too lightly. And I know that as a producer, I've definitely pushed people to play harder and not be a pussy about it. But I've noticed that there is definitely too hard. There's absolutely too hard. Like there is a level of picking. There's a velocity. There's like a sweet spot with velocity for each type of riff.
100%. Yeah. No, I definitely have noticed that. Like it's almost like if you play too hard, I don't know, like it just doesn't, like for example, like I found like if I'm picking a chord or something and I do it too hard, like it doesn't even resonate as full as I want it to. It kind of like goes beyond that point. So you kind of need to like, it's more so I find like how you actually strike the strings, because you can strike it hard in many ways, but it's like the actual follow through of your wrist that will make it resonate the way that you want, I find anyway. But no, you're right. There's like definitely a point where it's too hard and it almost sounds like choked. Like it's not even, yeah.
Have you noticed, speaking of chords, like if you pick it wrong or too hard, sometimes you'll get an uneven distribution?
Yes, 100%. That's what I was thinking. I don't know how to say it. Yeah, like it's either like top heavy, or if you have like more follow through towards the bottom of the chord, it's like more higher string heavy, and you don't really get that nice consistent string to string, that sound, I guess.
That shit drives me crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
It really drives me crazy because like sometimes it's like hard to diagnose sometimes, because sometimes it's a combination of your picking and your pickups and the tuning and like a bunch of factors. So you could, you could like dial yourself how you're picking, but if you're doing it on the wrong guitar for what you're doing, good luck.
Yeah, no, I've definitely come across that as well, especially with the pickups, like because recently I just got one of those new, I don't know if you've seen it, like those Pro Plus Jackson guitars that they just put out.
I have not.
It's pretty sick, I won't lie. I know I play Jackson, but I think a lot of people were asking for it. But it comes with the Fishmans. I'm not a massive fan of Fishman pickups, I've found. I don't know, because I'm so used to like the passive sound. I play a lot of bare knuckle pickups. So like I definitely noticed that like I was striking it the same way, but when I picked up like pretty much the exact same guitar, just different pickups, I was noticing the difference straight away in like the response and how it felt to play and how chords sounded as I was picking through. I was like, this isn't how I'm used to. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean it's like bad or good. It's just more so like what works for you as a player, I guess. But no, I've definitely noticed that for sure.
Speaking of, Have you seen those videos where people are trying to say that pickups don't matter?
Yes, I have seen those videos and I know exactly what you're talking about.
That
And
shit is so
I
hilariously
mean,
stupid.
like, I kind of see both sides of it because if, I don't know, I find, especially in like modern metalcore production, the bigger bands per se, like I find that most of their not takes, but like most of their recordings, like all the tones of it, and it gets EQ'd to death and stuff, like to the point where you kind of ask yourself, yeah, well, maybe a difference in pickups, like who's going to really notice the difference? But in terms of like actually sitting there and playing the guitar or having like a more dynamic performance, like it is 100% a key factor in your guitar tone. That is the truth. Yeah, like it's not even a question. So I don't know why people say otherwise, but
And it's funny because like how many top bands are there who work with top mixers? Not that many in the world. Like the majority of guitar players in metal bands are not going to get that kind of production. They're just not.
Yeah, sure.
They can't afford it. So like this stuff, like if you're bringing in like best metal mixer in the world to mix your stuff, they can work with anything. So yeah, they'll be adding their sauce.
Oh yeah, for sure. All the little tricks and everything.
Yeah, and they'll overcome. They can overcome almost anything. But that doesn't. I feel like that shouldn't matter though, because if you can make it better when you're tracking it, if there's something that allows you to play better, or it allows you to get a better feel when you're playing, or
yeah, for sure,
makes it sound more like what you want it to sound like from the source, that's just going to make the mixer's life easier.
Oh, for sure. The word that you said, feel, I've like lately, I don't know, the past like 6 months, I've been really getting into that. Like, because I feel like now it's always the question of, I think this just goes with gear in general, but people are always so obsessed with like what sounds the best. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I think I've just come to this conclusion that everything at this point sounds pretty good. And it's up to you to like, I don't know, I feel like if it feels good under your fingers, like for example, like if you use like a certain amp sim or use a certain set of pickups, like if it feels good to play, as you mentioned, you're going to get a better performance out of yourself. It's going to feel better. You're going to record better. You're going to make your mixer's life a lot easier. And that's what's going to get the best out of you. So yeah, no, it's funny that you brought that up because I actually have been thinking about that quite a bit. Like for me, with the passive pickups, like the way it feels as I pick through them, like there's probably a lot of other factors involved, like even like the way that I pick or the picks that I use or the music, like the style of music that I'm playing. But all of that is like the perfect storm for that set of pickups. And that's what feels the best for me. Whereas like, someone might like the more kind of squashed active sound because it works for them in their context. And if it feels good for them, then that's really all that matters, Yeah.
Like I love EMGs. Fishmans are cool too. But like I don't dislike passives, but I love actives. And I know that some people hate that thing you just said, that compression that they give. Some people fucking hate that, but I like it.
I think sometimes it depends. Like I find that for like the really lower tune stuff, maybe not so much the Fishmans, but I think like the EMGs, at least from when I tried them like years ago now, but it didn't like give me, it was like almost too compressed. But I think like, there's a reason why Metallica love EMG pickups. You know what I mean? Like, I think it just works in those more like traditional metal style recordings because it does sound fatter and it is compressed. Whereas like, with the lower tune stuff, it's like you're already working with something that's so low and fat. So it's like adding more on more, if that makes sense.
To be fair, I don't have EMGs in any of my 7s or 8, and I've never actually tried those. Like, they're only in my 6s.
Right.
So maybe...
what are you tuning your 6s to, just out of curiosity?
Drop C usually, but I might change that. But that I feel Drop C is like E standard to me.
Yeah, isn't it?
You know what I mean?
I don't think I have a single guitar tuned to E standard. I think the Drop D, it might be the highest I've got, but yeah.
Drop D?
Yeah, which isn't like, it's like
That's
the
pretty
ones.
much.
Yeah, but that's just for recording purposes. If it was up to me, I'd just put it in C. But like, yeah.
Oh, I want to know about that. So why for recording purposes?
Oh, just because that is like, it's my only ever tuned 6-string. So if I'm recording like 8-string stuff that's tuned to drop E, I need like, and I want to record the Evertune. Yeah. So I'll just have like a standard guitar, but then I just drop the top string because like I'm not using that for recording leads anyway. So I'll just use that to play Fall Out Boy songs whenever I feel like.
Yeah. So speaking of Evertune and tuning, you were talking earlier about tuning within chords, like when recording. Have you noticed that with Evertune you still have to do that?
I haven't, to be honest. I haven't bothered to do that because I find that the intonation and stuff on the Evertune is pretty good as is. Like, I think it would take a lot more to do that with the Evertune, a lot more time, which would ultimately take me out of like recording mode, as we were talking about, which like, you know, yeah, it might sound like marginally better and it's maybe something that 0.001% of people will notice, you know what I mean? But I think for the most part, just the tuning on Evertunes is fine. If I do it on like just like a normal hardtail guitar, for sure I will, you know, when I find like if I play a chord string through string and like one of them's like slightly out, I will then like tune the chord to itself and just record that one chord and then do it the next. It depends how far up the fretboard you go, as you know, but like, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's more about how much time I'm going to be putting into tuning, as opposed to actually recording something, which might be selfish, but it is what it is. Yeah.
No, I think it's perfectly fair. So I want to know something about you recording yourself, because everything I've heard of yours has like really, really good pocket. Like that's kind of when I think of your music, I think of like stuff that feels really good rhythmically.
Thank you.
Like there's more to it than that, but that's like the thing that like everything I've heard kind of shares is like that's what's cohesive, or one of the cohesive elements like is like really, really good rhythmic, I guess, feel. What I'm wondering is when you're recording, what amount of that is like through the take? What amount of that is sliding stuff around? And if you are sliding stuff around, how do you keep it from sounding robotic? Like, I'm curious, like, because every modern guitar player, like what you hear recorded is like a combination of human plus computer. So like,
Yeah.
so what I'm wondering is like, what's your ratio, and when you are using the computer, what are you using it for and how much?
Yeah. So, I guess like it depends. Like if it's for like a YouTube video or something like that, I'm not as fussed because I just like I'll get like a good riff and get it in one take and double track it or quad track it or whatever. Unless it's like super intricate and I want it to sound like really stylized and clean, then I'll chop it up a little bit. But if it's for like something that I'm going to release on Spotify that's like under my name and a little bit more serious, then I'm super meticulous about how I record. But for the most part, I'd say like 90 to 95% of what you hear in the rhythm sections are basically just like me doing like a one take of the whole riff from back to front, unless there's something in the riff that calls for me to stop recording. For example, like if I need to move all the way up the fretboard to kind of play another part of the fretboard and then jump back, like something like that where I don't want the sound of the slide of my hands going through, then I'll cut that. But I think for the most part, what I'm cutting and sliding around most of the time, I very rarely comp takes with like I'll record 3 and then chop up the best bits, because I think fortunately like I found home recording when I was like around 15, 16, so that was like 6, 7, 8 years ago now. Yeah, like around 8 years ago. So I think I just got super used to playing to a metronome and just constantly like recording myself. And it is like, people say it all the time, but it is true. Like if you just constantly record yourself to a metronome, or especially to drum MIDI, I think you just get a natural tendency to play a little bit tighter. So most of the time, if it's like a super simple riff that doesn't have a lot of jumping around, like it's pretty much just one take. If anything, like if I record the second take and I like zoom into the waveform and see like where it is, maybe like the second one is like slightly off to the first, but everything is still like relative. So I'll just like shift it back a little bit and then everything kind of falls into place. So it's kind of like that internal clock is okay for the most part. It's just playing it to the metronome. But yeah, when I'm cutting stuff up, I'm trying to think of an example if anyone's listening that knows any of my songs. There's a little bit in the intro riff of my song Pulse where it has this like harmonized scale run that like arpeggio, I guess, that kind of goes down the fretboard. And that's extremely cut up because I wanted that for like a stylistic effect, but in order to kind of make that sound as natural as possible without just stop, stop. You know what I mean? Like I kind of record a little bit before so that you kind of catch my hands moving into that next position and then cut that up and then do it again across all of those different segments of that riff or whatever section I'm recording. And then when you piece it all together and crossfade in the DIs and then run it through an amp sim, you kind of still get that natural sounding, like your hand sliding to the next bit and all that stuff. But my ground rule is that if I can't, like, it's not to say that I can't play it, because I can. I play it live all the time. It's more so just like, you know, unfortunately, like the standard of like modern metal recording, it's like if it's not to that standard, then people might dismiss it, to be honest. So just to get to that level and to make it consistent with what is already out there, if not like better, that's what I feel like I need to do as an independent artist in this space. But if I'm writing anything, the bottom line is that I need to be able to play it in one take cleanly enough. Like if I can record it in one take and be happy with it for like a YouTube video or live or whatever, perfect, that's fine. But if it's going to be for something that's meant to be like attached to my name and super specific, then I will be a little bit more careful about how it sounds, for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. And I like that you keep your standards high of actually being able to play it. And
for sure, yeah.
And I think that might be part of what it is in what I'm hearing, is because like there are ways to like cut yourself up or cut up a performance and make it feel better, but generally cutting stuff up too much, like, it hurts the feel.
Oh, 100%.
Overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real hard to get something that like really flows naturally if it's like 3 notes plus 2 notes plus
exactly right. And that's the exact reason why I just make sure I can play it all in the one take, because you're going to get a more natural performance out of it that way. It's more so for like, again, like the stylistic thing of being super clean cut and, you know, dragging certain notes on the grid to make sure it lands with everything else.
Man, I've noticed, just because, you know, I've been recording so much, that like there's definitely parts that you have to do in fragments. Just because, like, to get it clean enough, like you said, just to be like up to standard for where the bar is for modern sounding recordings, like you got to do things a certain way sometimes. Like, just because we're human. And it's not that it would sound bad if it was like a performance. It just wouldn't. It's like not doing the riff justice, I think, to not present it in the best possible light. And I think that live, there's other factors that make up for it, like energy, for instance. So like the live, people are taking in a lot more than just the recording, or they're not taking the recording, but taking in much more than just the music.
Like performance,
yeah. So, and it's so loud that like all those little details like squeaks
get lost. Yeah, I mean, you'll hear it in your in-ears, but like the crowd won't.
No, it doesn't even matter though. But on a recording, you know, that's forever, and you don't have all those other things going on to distract. You have just the music, and so I think in that case, you have to present the music in the way that it comes across best. And for some riffs, man, for some parts, it's just got to be done that way. But I've noticed that, like, if you do that too much, there's certain types of riffs that, like, even if you do them in fragments and you get them perfect, like, it just sounds weird. Like clean parts, for instance.
Oh yeah, clean parts are always one take. Very rarely ever.
Yeah, it got to be for the most part.
Because it's so transparent. Like you hear every little thing, like every slide on the fretboard, every touch of a string. If it's like a very revealing clean tone, then it's not like you can hide behind any gain. It's like very much there. So if you don't cut it up properly, then it can sound a little bit manufactured for sure.
Yeah, you got to be really strategic, but not just manufactured. Like I've noticed that, like the feel is really hard to get at all when cutting that stuff up.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like that's why I'm pretty transparent on like how I do that stuff, because I get students a lot of the time asking like, oh, how do I play clean like the stuff that you play? And it's like, well, the stuff you're hearing, like I guess it's clean, but it was cut up and I'll tell you exactly where I did it. Do you know what I mean? And like I think having that understanding is actually like more important, because you get a lot of the guys like, oh, it's like it's cut up, it's not real. Like, well, it is real. It's just
real cut up.
Yeah, it's just done to sound a certain way. I always use this analogy where it's like, I think I did a video on it in the past on my channel, where it's like, I think these days, like my generation and even the generation after me coming out now, like the 16, 17-year-olds, they're like, for example, the context with me is that I was obviously like heavily inspired by bands like Periphery and stuff like that, who, when they were coming up, had all of this gear and all this tech to kind of get those recordings the way that they are and how clean they sound. But I was like none the wiser when I was like discovering it. So then naturally my tendency of playing was to be as tight as that recording. And I think over time it's very like natural feeling now, whereas like the generation after me is like all these guys like Polyphia and stuff like that, who again are like kind of just a little bit older than me, who are doing the same thing, who can play so well acoustically and in one take that it's like kind of like they're robots, because their point of reference was those recordings. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing how good people have gotten.
It's insane.
At playing. Yeah. And Polyphia is a great example of it. I started to notice this thing you're talking about, this trend of people getting a lot better, like kind of when I first encountered Alex Rudinger. And that's like, he was just like so much better than lots of, almost any drummer I'd worked with, just in terms of, like I'm thinking back to like 2013, like that there were not too many people who could just do that, like play a song at like 250 BPM and like do it in like 2 takes or 3 takes, and like, you don't need
just
to
have
edit
that consistency.
Yeah, that was super rare. And then what I started thinking about it, and it's like, okay, so when he was a kid, he was listening to drummers that had been edited, but probably didn't know that they were edited, just figured that's how you play. And that's what he trained himself on.
Yeah, for sure.
And then became the next version of that. And then I think that's what's happening. Like you have kids who hear music sounding a certain way and not questioning how it was made, just getting inspired and trying to do that.
For sure. I think that ignorance is almost like better in a way, because like if they don't know, then they don't know, and they kind of just push themselves to be better, which is why you see videos of like 15-year-olds playing Polyphia in one take on YouTube, and you're like, wow, this is like just as clean as the band.
It's crazy. It's really inspiring, because I remember like not too long ago, people were really negative about the younger generation. And there was like a time where being good at guitar and being good at music was kind of like scoffed at. So it's like the 2000s. It wasn't like a great time for musicianship.
Right. I completely missed that. So
yeah, you're lucky. It was a real weird time for musicianship. There wasn't too much to go around, and it wasn't really appreciated or encouraged. And I think that like just kind of sucking or being mediocre was like, I don't want to say a badge of honor, but like okay, which is crazy to me.
Like following on from like the grunge era, is that what we're kind of getting at?
Grunge and new metal. Even though I like Korn and I like Alice in Chains, I like some of that stuff. It created this like lack of standards in younger players, and that kind of went over into the metalcore days. You had people that were just then starting to try to get better. And it wasn't till like the end of that decade when like Periphery came out and, things started to shift in the direction that they're going in now, which is awesome.
Yeah, and now it's like everyone's in that direction. Everyone's like...
It's great.
Yeah, no, it is really cool. And like that's why things like Riffhard exist. Like it's because of stuff like that for sure, which is super exciting to see.
Yeah, the thing is like, instructional videos have always existed, right? Like there's always been a way to learn something if you go looking. But I think that one of the biggest differences between now and the past is that, you could find some videos, but like you'd have zero interaction. Like in 1999, if I went and I bought the John Petrucci video, which I did, it's like that was great, but like it's not like I could interact with him or like 2,000 other people who are also watching it and like keeping tabs on each other and posting videos and like being active about it. It's just like me and that video.
Yeah, it's like a one-to-one transaction.
Yeah, exactly. And then with guitar, as far as guitar instruction goes, like I know that like Kirk Hammett took lessons from Joe Satriani, right? Like stuff you hear about stuff like that happening where it's like somebody that got really famous took lessons from someone else that was kind of famous, and like that's just luck that they happen to be geographically near each other. Yeah, that's just like
time. Yeah,
that's just luck. And if you were lucky enough to have a good teacher near you, cool. If not, oh well. Whereas now that doesn't matter.
Yeah. I like even now, like most of my students are from the US, and like the fact that we can even do it is like, I know it's like not a new thing, or whatever, but it's cool. Like I think about it's like, oh, like this person's like on the other side of the world, and they're like, I'm telling them about how to hold their pick and like all this stuff. Like it's really cool.
Yeah, it's great. And I think it's funny because you hear some people talk shit about the internet and how it's like making people stupider and worse. I don't see that at all. I see the opposite. I think it makes people better and smarter and helps them expand their skill sets like at an increasingly faster rate.
Yeah, for sure. And if you look in the right places, that's 100% the reality. Sometimes like I find that with a lot of music stuff, especially like mixing stuff, there is a lot of information out there. So it's kind of like being able to also like filter the stuff that isn't that great. But then at the same time...
Just go to URM.
Exactly right.
You're all good.
No, that is true though. Like all those YouTube videos of like the URM stuff where, you know, there's an actually like world-renowned mixer, producer, engineer actually mixing it in front of you. And it's that, but also like sometimes I see people, it's like, oh, well, if I like dial my gain at 6 and dial my lows at 4 on any amp, it's going to sound sick. It's like, that's not really how it works. But if you kind of like take it in a little bit more proactively, understand why they're doing it for that certain scenario, then you can kind of cater it to your own taste for, and all your variables that you're presenting, whether it be how you pick or the pickups or the guitar or the tuning or, you know.
But, you know, there was a version of that like almost 20 years ago on the Sneap forums. He posted a screenshot of his C4 settings in that message board, and everybody was like freaking out and, you know, copying the settings and then not getting good guitar tone and not understanding why.
Remind me what the C4 is again. Sorry,
it's a multi-band compressor made
the
by
palm mute
Waves.
trick.
Yes, the palm mute
Yeah.
trick.
Okay. Yeah. See,
So
everyone does that now, but
yeah, it's like standard. It's standard fare now, but like it's kind of like if you're gonna mix metal, like that's something that's just part of the repertoire. But in like 2004, it was not. It was like a very groundbreaking technique, and for him to like show how he did it, like producers didn't do that back then.
That's crazy because that's such a common staple now. Like,
yeah, dude, different world. So him doing that, first of all, was really cool. But what was interesting was that people did the same shit they do now, which is like they just figured that'll work on everything, which is not true. Kind of like when you see those like EQ charts of like this range for this range for that, and then you try to mix like that, and it sounds like shit and don't understand why.
No, for sure. Like I think, yeah, you're right. Like that kind of way of thinking is still very prominent. I think like if you just take a little bit of a step back and realize like, okay, like even something as simple as like that, like C4 trick is like, if I have a lower tuned guitar and I palm mute, it's going to be way more heavy in a lower region. Like it's not going to work. The same like band isn't going to work across every single guitar, every single tuning, every single player. But just understanding like what that process is for and how to dial in is much more important for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are right though that like with all the good information, there's bad information, and so you have to be careful, and not just like you got to filter out the bullshit. And I think it's the same with guitar instruction. It's the same with really any kind of instruction. But I think that like that's why it's important to like seek out people who do it in real life. People who do it well in real life and learn from them rather than people who don't do it well in real life. Because you get a lot of that online. Speaking of something you do real well in real life, so we just made a bass programming fast track with you over at URM.
Yes.
And it's something that I wanted to do for a long time because programming bass is something that I feel like just everybody does it. Like whether or not they use program bass on stuff they release, that's not everyone does that, but like everyone programs bass at some point. And a good program bass is going to be better than a shitty or mediocre bassist, just like good program drums are better than mediocre real drums. So there's a legitimate scenario or scenarios where having good program bass will just be better than an actual bassist. But you got to know what you're doing. And what I'm wondering is like, what inspired you to get good at that? And how did you learn to do it?
Thank you for saying that, by the way. I really enjoyed that as well, doing that with the RM. But I think it's super important because like in my case, like, I don't know, I'm a guitar player. I have lots of guitars and lots of tunings. I can record them and I'll enjoy doing it, but I don't have a lot of basses for all of those guitars and all of those tunings, and I don't have all the money to buy fresh strings every time I want to record it and all this stuff. And like when you think about it like that, like at the end of the day, whether it's program drums, program bass, whatever, I just view them as tools. And you're right, like a program bass that is programmed well is going to sound a million times better than like me trying to play bass on an actual bass, I find. Because it is different. Like it's not just guitar. It's like you play it differently to kind of get it to sound the way that you want it to sound, I found. Because I have a Dingwall, but I got it just to use in live shows. I'll record on it one day if it's in drop A flat, like the Dingwall set up in. But with recording, with programming bass, it was more of like, well, I want my recordings to sound on par with the stuff that I was listening to at the time and still do listen to. And it was the same thing with drums. Like rather than like spend money to get someone else to record it, which, I'm not against doing, but at the time, like I wasn't in the financial position to do so. But I did have time. So just like with programming drums, like with programming bass, it's kind of like I took the time to learn how to program to make it sound as real as I possibly could. And, I would like I still do this now. Like I'd reference actual, like for example, like on URM, like, you know, sometimes there's bass DIs that are actually real basses, right? So
Mhm.
I would program like MIDI bass and try to make it sound like that program bass to kind of see how real I could get it to sound.
Yep.
And the way that I'm thinking now is like, especially with the drums, like even if you record a real drum kit, like everyone's just mangling it until the point that it sounds fake anyway. So like, why not just use program drums from the start? Like it's all sample replacement most of the time. Everything's gridded. That's already in the box with like a drum library, and it sounds a lot better than me just going to like some local studio and doing it myself, and getting a drummer to do it myself takes a lot less time. And having that like level, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the quality of those recordings within those programs, whether it be drums or bass, like just being able to see, have that reference of what it should sound like, and then learning how to mix those based on like that level and what it should be, I think is what really helped me kind of learn all that stuff. But yeah, I think with the bass and programming that, very much just like referencing it to actual bass DIs that I could get my hands on, whether it was the URM or even just me recording it and like trying to match it as best as I could. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
That's actually when I was learning how to program drums, that's kind of what I did too, was I just like transcribed some of my favorite songs and favorite fills and just kind of like did what I needed to do with just playing with it until it kind of sounded like it. And you know, I realized after a while that it was all about velocity. And you know, once I figured that out, then it kind of like unlocked this unlocked the next level. But it was basically the same thing you're saying, is taking things you like in the real world and then trying to make the software match it as much
Yeah.
as you can.
It's kind of like with the drums, like the velocities, especially. Like, but the thing is, like, every drummer is different. So, like,
Yeah.
velocities will alter. So, like, I know that for me, like, my velocities are very reminiscent of maybe something that, like, Matt Halpern would play, just the way that he sits behind the kit and, you know, like, certain notes that he'd emphasize on the kit in certain grooves. I find that I program it very much the same. But, like, if I bring that MIDI chart to my drummer, Steven, to learn, he'll have like a different flavor to it, and he'll still like accent certain notes and stuff, but like even in the fills, like certain notes kind of aren't as strong or are stronger in some certain parts, and it's very much just up to the drummer. So then it's like another level of programming. It's like if you wanted to sound like a certain drummer or have it to like certain groove or something like that, it's almost like you need to be aware of that as well.
Yeah, and you can get really, really close. I still think that nothing beats the real thing when the real thing is done as good as possible.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to program drums better than Matt is going to play them. Like, Matt in a studio recorded by Nolly, like,
It's
is going to
exactly
be
right.
better than Matt's drums. Something being programmed in the style of Matt, even on his own GGD kits or whatever, like it's never gonna top the real thing. But how many people have access to a drummer like Matt Halpern?
Or a mixer like Nolly, or a studio
Yeah.
like whatever studio they record in. It's like it's all these variables.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, man. Because like, you know, Krim's the drummer in my band, and like he was just at Jens Bogren's place recording drums, and like, so Jens has like one of the best drum rooms I've ever seen in my entire life. He is one of the greatest metal producers and mixers of all time, with one of the best drummers like in metal that's alive. And you just Krim, when we write, like he sends me E-kit drums. So he plays, even if he sends me MIDI, he played it. And then we use his sounds from his drum pack, and like it sounds sick. But like the moment you hear the real drums recorded like that, it's just like the MIDI sounds like a toy compared to that. But like I've heard enough shitty drummers or mediocre drummers to know that like Krim's MIDI annihilates them. And so yeah, like you can, except for the very best of situations, I think that like good programming can take you a really long way.
No, for sure. And I think like with the real stuff, even if it's like stems that I've seen, it's more so like it captures the vibe. I hate to use that word, but like
it's a good word.
Yeah, I mean,
what
like,
does it mean?
I know, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Where it's like it's very much like that moment in time, like you hear it, and you can try to emulate that with programmed drums, like maybe turning some room sounds up or stuff like that. But like it's not. I don't know. It's not the same. Just like, yeah, being in that particular, like certain drum libraries, for example, like the new P5 kit that came out, I really enjoy that kit. But it's not going to work for every single style of music on the planet. But that one recording with those packs of stems or whatever that you've gotten your hands on, it's like, this is perfect kind of thing. When it's done by a really good drummer, really good engineer, really good producer, recorded well, you're right, nothing beats it.
No, but like the thing is, when I get purists who say that that's the only way to do it, like I feel like that's delusional. It's delusional because like if your drummer sucks.
Exactly right. That's the way I think. It's like if I can, whatever gets me the best sound, right? So like if I had all the resources to get drums recorded like really, really well to the standard that I see as like the best that there is, like that can be offered to me, then 100% I'll get that done. But at the moment, like given everything that's going on,
this is the situation. This is what
like,
reality is.
I'm not going to stop myself from like creating or writing music or releasing music just because like I don't have the best tools that is available to me. The tools I have are sick. They're fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing that we get all this stuff, and like the fact that people still kind of talk on it. Like
it's crazy. I think they're just not aware of how good these tools are.
It's like the whole amp sim thing when people are like, oh, amp sim sounds fake. It's like, well, maybe 15 years ago, but like not anymore. Like I can guarantee you 9 out of 10 modern bands are using amp sims when they're recording, and they're using programmed drums. They just won't tell you. But I've heard stories where it's like they're all using programmed drums because they know that no one will be able to notice the difference. Like, and it's true.
Man, on the topic of amp sims, so, you know, I took like 8 years off of guitar, and when I took the time off, amp sims weren't that great. And then when I came back, they were great. And so like I have had this unique perspective on it because it was like coming back and then everything's awesome. Everything's awesome. Like the amp sims now, just even the ones that aren't that great are still better than the stuff that was around back then. So like it's so easy now to get a pretty good sound with what's just commonly available.
Yeah.
That I think that people should not hold themselves back. And what you just said, that like you're not going to let your situation, whatever it may be, stop you from moving forward. Why should you? Like you've got the tools to make great sounding stuff. So why not try to move forward as much as possible?
No, exactly right. It's almost harder to sound bad than it is to sound good at this point. Like, yeah,
you got to try.
For sure.
Though I hear some nail the mix entries where I'm like, how is this worse than like just faders up?
Everything set to unity. No, like, and that's the thing. Like, it comes with time. I think, at least in my case anyway, I've kind of been fortunate because I've never really owned a real amp. Like I have, but like maybe like a little practice amp when I was a kid. I've been sent previously like a 5150 Iconic with the 4x12 to do a video on, but that was like the first proper amp and cab I ever had in my house ever. I've grown up on amp sims, and you're right, like they've gotten so much better. Because when I started, it was still like Positive Grid Bias 1 and stuff like that, like which at the time was pretty good, but now like it doesn't really compare to any of the stuff that's out now. Yeah, and you're right. Everything that's coming out now, it's like, even if it doesn't sound as good, it still sounds like so much better than the stuff that was happening back then, for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I'm curious, you do lots of different stuff. You're wearing lots of hats, and your video game is strong, and anyone who makes any sort of video knows that like that in and of itself could take up all your time. So between like knowing how to record yourself, like the video stuff, writing music, teaching, like all these different things, going on tour, like how do you keep any semblance of a practice routine going so that you can keep on getting better? Like how do you prioritize? When you are practicing, how do you prioritize your practice time, and like how do you keep yourself moving forward when you have so many different things that can take you away from actual practice?
Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned that, because like I've never been one to like practice. Like I don't really like sit down with a metronome and run scales or anything. I can't even like read music. I couldn't play a major scale on my guitar if I had one in front of me. But I think my like practice just comes from just like over the years of, whether it needs to be like practicing for shows now, or like before it was like writing demo songs for YouTube, or the practice comes in the form of, running a metronome, practicing recording, practicing to a drum track, and just being super aware of all that stuff. And then, if I want to do something that I can't do, like for example, like I can't sweep pick. I'd love to be able to sweep pick, but I can't. I think now, like when I get to a point where I'm like, okay, no, I really want to do this because I want to implement it in my music, and I want it to be something that I can do going forward, then I will be proactive about practicing it. Like for example, recently, I just took a lesson with, do you know Jake Houshmand from the Helix Nebula and Pliny's rhythm guitarist?
I don't, but I'm sure that if he's Pliny's guitarist, he's great.
He's a freak. Yeah. He's insane.
Like that's for sure. I don't even need to hear him to know that.
Yeah. No, like watching him play live is like, it's full on. So I wanted to be able to kind of play all that super quick lead stuff. So I actually took a lesson with him, and we talked about a lot of stuff like finger dexterity and all these things that I wasn't really aware of, because it's one of those things where I just wasn't that proactive about it. But when I decided, okay, no, I want to do it. Like I actually want to get better at lead playing, better at playing fast. And we kind of took steps, and now I have to have my follow-up lesson with him soon. But yeah, it's kind of those.
You took steps. What are these steps? Steps have been taken.
Okay, so like
moves have been made.
He was kind of saying like the way he was explaining it, it made sense. Like if you're trying to play fast, it's like telling a marathon runner to learn to sprint by walking. Like it hits like a certain point where if you try to play so fast, like your brain can only send so much information to your hands that it kind of needs to be sent in packets. Which made so much sense, because, you hear like, oh, do slow and then build it up. So it's like a completely different level of like twitch, fine control in your hands at speed. I'm talking like 200 BPM plus.
Yeah.
So just having that, and then like me doing it in front of me, you say, oh yeah, like if you arch your hand this way, it's easier to get the pick up to the next string, and like all these little things that he's so used to doing because he's such a phenomenal player. And that's I got exactly what I wanted, because I just wanted to pick his brain about all of that stuff. But yeah, in terms of like practicing, like that's one example very recently where I've kind of like gone, okay, no, I actually want to get better, and I want to put it in my repertoire of like guitar skills or whatever. So I'm like working on that at the moment. And yeah, I'm sure that will come across in some original music at some point. But it's not like I just have a lesson and you get it. Like it takes time, like years. Even he was saying like it's like a muscle. Like if you stop working it, you kind of lose it almost. So him saying that, like coming from his mouth, it's like it made me even appreciate the dedication to all that stuff even more, because players who can play like that, like, a lot of people, I feel like these days a lot of modern players especially go, oh yeah, they can play fast, like so what? You know what I mean? Like, no, I think it's sick.
So
It's
what?
awesome.
Like, it's fun. Yes, exactly. It's awesome, and it's not so what. Like, there's this like myth that like that's easy to do or that everyone can
No,
do it. Like, it's fucking hard to
it's
do,
ridiculous, man.
and not everyone can do it.
No, absolutely not. And I put my hat off to anyone that can play like that. Especially after that, it really, like, whenever something pops up on like my feed or whatever, and it's someone just playing a million notes a second, I can, like, I appreciate it even more now. I'm like, yeah, this is a lot. Like, this person has taken time. This person has practiced a lot to get to this point. Like, I'm not just going to dismiss it. This is very cool that I'm seeing this.
It's not natural. That's not the natural state for someone on an instrument. You have to make you have to make a real decision that you're going to do that and stick by that decision for a really, really long time. Just like being a bodybuilder or something. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
It's a very, very good parallel. And interesting that, like, you said that, like, you decided you want to get better at playing fast, because recently I started taking lessons from Ian Way, a guitar player in Surreption. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but it's like they're one of like the pinnacle tech death metal bands out there.
Oh,
like,
well, there you go. Tech death is like, yeah,
crazy shit. And so I wanted to take lessons with him while getting ready for the Doth recording. I just wanted to get faster and just better, but specifically faster, faster and clean with it. And he also said something that was very similar to that, which was, you're only going to get better at playing faster by playing faster. Like you got to play fast. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. So, but there is a place where playing slow makes sense. And I think that it's in building up, like, there's like a certain like familiarity with the part.
Like the muscle memory.
Yeah, and some endurance, like the hand-brain connection. I think, like, sometimes to take something in slow is good, and then also for warming up, it's good. But like to actually develop like the speed, like real speed, you have to be like playing at higher tempos and then figuring out how to make that work, because like, yeah, the physical side of it is just different. Like you're going to engage a different part of your hand, a different part of your arm. Like, you're going to be playing the strings differently. Like, it's just different. You have to, like you said, you have to learn to process things more in like packets or fragments of notes rather than like every single note. Cause you can't think that fast. So like, yeah, I've noticed that like, you can only get better at doing it by actually doing it, which I have noticed just from like, having the Riffhard community, that seems like there are people that they feel like they're not ready to play faster, do this thing that they want to learn how to do. You get that on one hand, but then on the other hand, you get people who they bite off too much. And so it's like interesting. You got to know like where, like how much you should be pushing it. Like what's a good speed that you can actually like get better at. So, and I've noticed that like with that, like when I figure out what that speed is, I'll set a metronome for like 3 levels. So it'll be like slow, medium, fast. So, and I'll do slow for like 5 minutes on the exercise, then it bumps up to medium, and then for 5 minutes, then bumps up to fast for 5 minutes. And each one of them is important. But like I didn't used to do that. I used to kind of like gradually get there. And that would be a lot less time spent at the high speed, because it's like over the course of 15 minutes, gradually going from slow to fast, like you spend less time at the top there. And I've noticed that making myself spend more time at the top and getting comfortable up there, like, has made a massive difference.
Oh, for sure.
Massive difference.
For sure. I think like, especially just with learning anything, whether it's fast or slow, I always like to say this to students, is like when we go, if like we're learning a song or something and they're learning it for the first time, whether it's quick, slow, whatever, like half their brain is trying to get, again, like the muscle memory of like where to move their hands and like the brain hand coordination. And the other half is like the body physically trying to be able to play it. So it's like once you kind of get past that muscle memory stage, you can then dedicate everything to, like, you don't need to think about where your hand's going to go after you play this note in this part of the riff, like, because your hand's already moving up to the other part of the fretboard or something. So it's like, again, it's like you get this kind of coordination stuff down, and then you can worry about physically playing it, whether it be with your picking hand or whatever. I've noticed that for me with playing fast, my left hand lags. Like, it just doesn't, because my right hand, like I like to think I have a pretty decent picking hand, but my left hand, it's a bit slow to kind of lift off certain frets. And now that I've like, you know, we have all these tools, not everyone uses them. They should. Like, you can record yourself, you can film yourself, you can watch back, you can listen back. Because like, if you have no one here to sit and tell you how you're practicing or how you're learning something, you could just like think you played a million notes in a second, go, yeah, fuck, I killed that. You know what I mean? But like, in reality, like, you might watch it back and go, oh, actually, that's that. You know, if you put the microscope on it, yeah, I didn't lift my finger off quick enough here, I'm dragging here, etc., etc. And then you can take the steps to kind of mediate that.
Yeah, so real virtuoso freak level players have noticed that their self-awareness is off the charts. Like, to the point of, like, you know, how much are you rotating your wrist, like a centimeter, or like exactly like what angle, like precise angle, like 1 degree difference of the pick, or like exactly which muscle you're tensing for what kind of part, like all those.
Insane. It's insane.
Yeah, all those things, but they matter.
They do, especially at that level. As soon as you say that, the first person that comes to mind is Jason Richardson, because watching him play at speed, it's like, I always joke with my guitar buddies or whatever, that like his hand, if you watch a playthrough, it's like hovering. Like, you don't even see the movement of his fingers like pressing down on the string. It's kind of just like, like, it's so fine.
It's crazy.
He's so dialed in to playing that fast. It's phenomenal, really. It's insane.
Have you seen Spiro Ducias?
No, I have not.
Look him up on Instagram and watch some of his videos and just have your mind blown. Basically.
Okay, done. That's like my typical daily check of just open Instagram, see something that I will never be able to play in a million years, and then just keep scrolling. Like, yeah,
some of his videos, I see them and I'm like wondering, like, how is this humanly possible? It's gotten to that level, which I think is really, really cool. And Jason Richardson, I feel like he was like one of the first people in recent times, by recent I mean 10 years or so. Like, I feel like Jason was like the start of this trend of like guitar players where you question if like they're breaking laws of physics or something.
Oh, 100%. Have you heard of or seen any stuff from Steven Taranto?
Oh, yeah. He's another one.
Oh, my God. He is like, every time he pops up on my feed, I just start laughing because, like, I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, it's insane. People like that, like, they're just on another level. And I put my hat off to them because, again, it's like that commitment. Like, it's not nothing. It's something for sure.
What's great, though, is with people like that in the world, I've noticed that some people can get discouraged, like feel like it means that they shouldn't try, or what they have to express isn't valid because it's not like that. And and I think that I just think it's important to not let players like that do anything but inspire you, because there will always be someone coming out that's like going to do something better.
For sure. For sure. I think, it's like, don't let these amazing players think, oh, well, if I can't do that, then like, what's the point? It's like, well, you know, maybe you don't have to do that. Maybe your like artistic intent and like fulfillment can come from somewhere else. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to come from playing like X, Y, Z. And just the fact that you can't physically do that yet is not something to be discouraged by. I always talk about it with my drummer, because when we did that Animals as Leaders tour, he was like watching Matt every night, and he was kind of getting a little bit discouraged. Not really, but like he was kind of like, oh man, like Matt is just like a different level. It's like he kind of like felt a little bit. I was like, nah, don't. Like, it's be inspired. Like, it's awesome to see someone playing at that level. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can just learn stuff from just watching them. Like, it's when you put that, like, those steps forward of thinking that way, I feel like, especially in like everything music, it just gets so much better, because instead of feeling like you can't do it, you feel like, oh, I can, or I can do something else, or I can, yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you see that, it's like a good thing to ask is, how did they do that? Like, how did they get there? What level of commitment did they have to? What did they have to put in to get that out? How can I do that with my stuff?
Even if it's not like a 1-for-1, like
no,
yeah. I was going to say like like the dedication that it takes to pick at 250 BPM alternate picking, like even if you're not trying to do that, like you could apply that mindset to something else to get good at something else that's got to do with guitar playing. It doesn't have to be that particular thing. Like, for example, like I'll use Matt again. Like, obviously he's a freak and can play drums better than 99.99% of people on the planet. But like, if there's something that he does really well, like how did he get to that point? And then from there, it's like, okay, well, maybe I just want to be able to sit in the pocket a little bit better. How can I take what Matt's doing physically and kind of manifest that into my own playing?
Yeah, exactly. Or it could be something totally different. Like, I want to be as good at writing as that person is at their instrument or something.
Yeah.
Like, just I want to be as good at my thing as they are at their thing. Whatever my thing is. I feel like that's once people discover whatever their thing is, I think it gets a lot easier to coexist with freaks in the world, because you found your voice, and so like you can just go down that path, and like it's got its own challenges and it's unique to you. But I feel like before you figure that out, it can be a lot more intimidating, because you see these players that are not just amazing, but they're also very like directed down this path. And I've noticed that like once someone discovers what that is, like it's almost like other people's paths don't matter nearly as much. Like, and you can take in this greatness around you as like inspiration and something really, really cool.
For sure. It's like comparing like different genres. Like, yeah, Jason Richardson is like a freak. He's awesome at playing this style of music at like 300 bajillion BPM or whatever he's doing. But then like even like a really, I forget their name. I was just watching an interview with him, like the guitar player for Jamiroquai or something. Like, that's a completely different world, but like the way that they navigate the fretboard is completely different. But it doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just means that there's different things that you can take from each person.
And I bet you the dude from Jamiroquai has a sick picking hand with
for sure,
those funk
100%.
patterns.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
100%.
I guarantee you, it's like a devastatingly accurate right hand.
Just like the finesse and the control, for sure.
Yeah. Dude from Incubus is really good with that too. And it's like if you really want to appreciate music that's not like in your wheelhouse or whatever, you can, because there's whatever whenever someone is like world class at any genre, pretty much any genre, like to actually do it world class, some sort of insane commitment went into it. And the proof is that like no matter what genre, if you go to some local bar and watch the local band version of whatever, pick any genre, if you hear the shitty local band version and then compare it to like the top level, the difference is so stark. It's like such a vast difference that it just shows that like even if you're playing what's quote unquote simple music, to do it world class. Like, for instance,
it's
Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
That's very simple music, the Foo Fighters stuff. But like how many rock bands are there that sound like total shit that play that kind of stuff? Like, those players are great.
They're amazing. Yeah. A Foo Fighters show is something to behold as well. I don't know if you've been to one recently.
No, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really, really like that's when you kind of see like, oh, like it doesn't like skill is not like the forefront, and it doesn't matter because, you know, there's 20,000 people in this stadium that know every single word that Dave is singing, and to like them just connecting with each other on the stage. It's something to behold for sure. And you're right, not everyone has that.
Yeah, it's I think it's inspiring to just see, I guess, the top level of achievement musically, whether it's whether it's a technical feat or like just a connection with people feat, or like whatever it is. Like, there's something to be inspired by, I think, with like almost any great situation.
For sure.
Or intimidated, if that's what you want to.
But then like that, if that intimidation pushes you to be better in a positive way, then it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's all good.
Man, something, I think I've gotten used to it because like part of like the thing in my band is I've always approached it. I mean, always from the beginning as like, I need to be the worst musician in this lineup. If I'm a better musician than somebody, that is a bad sign, and they got to go. Like, they have to all be better than me. And I think it's because I'm the main writer, and like that's kind of my job. Not that other people don't write, but that's kind of like my job is very specific, and like I always think that it needs greater musicians than me to sound great.
Yeah, for sure. You're as strong as your weakest link, for sure.
Exactly. And so that should be me. So playing around these freak guitar players in the band, or like having to be on stage next to them, or just like, that's just been a thing that I've gotten used to. And like, if you let it get to you, like in a negative way, like you can feel very inferior compared to like someone that's an Olympic athlete, or you can learn from them too.
Yeah.
Like, you can, being around someone that's that good all the time, working with someone that good, like if you let it, it'll rub off on you and you'll get better, and it will allow your music to sound way better. And I think that like just being around those types of players, like, and having to work with them and like be seen in public next to them, like has like it's really helped me appreciate great players out there and not be intimidated by them, and like try to be inspired by them and learn from them. And I think that it's been very helpful, and I recommend it for anybody. Like, get someone way better than you.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and like you're right. Like, you have to want to like be able to look at it in a positive light. Otherwise, it will get to you, kind of thing. And the same can be said for even if they're not standing right next to you, but even like, again, just like watching someone online who you really admire. It's like, well, if you proactively take the steps to recognize how good they are at a certain thing and then take steps to kind of better that within yourself, then everyone wins. You know what I mean? This is how musicians get better. This is how music gets better. So
yeah, one last thing, and we're almost out of time. I just want to touch on something that kind of you said earlier. You didn't really say it, but you said things about it. So regarding practice, from what it sounds like to me, everything you do is very like outcome oriented. So like you said, like you want to get better at playing fast. So because of that, you'll do what it takes. But like, that's a very specific goal. Like, want to learn something that you're going to use in real life, then you will sit down and learn it. So it's, as opposed to just like learning something for the sake of learning it, or just like mindlessly doing something, seems to me like your style of doing things is like there always has to be a reason for it, and like it's outcome oriented. So like you do practice, but it's practice within the context of this thing that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. I think it's really cool because like if you look at your output, you've got a lot of output You're pretty prolific with the output, and so I think that people should pay attention to that and notice. So like you're not just aimlessly practicing. Like you do practice, but it's always like towards something, towards something real, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, like if I, for example, like again, very rarely do I sit with like a metronome and run scales or something like that. I've never been like, even since I was a kid, I never liked that stuff. But what I did enjoy was like learning songs front to back. I don't have much time to do that anymore as much as I would like. But when I was learning, like one example I always give is like the song, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this one in particular, but The Price is Wrong by Periphery.
I don't know it, but it sounds like one of their song names.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, it's literally like it's the first track on P3, and it's just downpicking the whole song. And I wanted to be able to play that song back to front the way it was intended to be played. And I learned very quickly that if I downpick, like my motion of downpicking isn't that great because I'm getting tired like 10 seconds into it. So that like is an example of me like, okay, like I want to learn this song. In doing so, I will get better at downpicking if I just keep at it. Another one is like, like being able to alternate pick at a certain level, like learning bleed. Like, you know, when I first started, it was like 10 seconds and then I would gas myself out. But now I could probably get like through a couple of minutes and not really feel any strain. And it's like this thing where it's like, if I want to get better at a certain thing, whether it's physically like picking or like lead playing or like from a songwriting perspective or a mixing perspective, I will like just do it and kind of get to that outcome that I'm looking for. But it's never like I intentionally go out to do it. It's kind of just like it happens over time.
Well, it's like people say about exercise. What's the best kind of exercise? And it's like the one you'll do, right? So
yeah,
it's like, yeah, there's like ideal exercises for certain outcomes. Sure. Like if you're going to train for a marathon, but all you do is like swim, it might not work out exactly right. But still at the end of the day, like, the exercise that you'll do consistently is the one that's best because doing something is better than thinking about something. And it's the same thing. It's like, it doesn't matter what got you to learn downpicking, whether it's doing downpicking exercises or learning that song. I know that Master of Puppets was that for people for a long time.
Yeah, that was one of mine as well.
Yeah. And does it matter that it's a song versus exercises? Point is like, if you're able to play that at speed, you know how to downpick. And if that's how you learn, then cool.
For sure. Yeah. And if you enjoy the process of doing it, like if you enjoy doing like more traditional like routines and practices and stuff like that because you see the results and you think it works better for you, then by all means, like do it a million times. It doesn't matter. Whereas like if you find more enjoyment in learning a song that you like to listen to and kind of pick up the stuff from that song a little bit more holistically, then that's fine as well. At the end of the day, you're going to get to the same place. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people are really caught up on like just trying to get somewhere as quick as they can when I've always been a big believer in just enjoying something, like whether it's like, I want that to be the number one thing I'm thinking about all the time. Like I don't make YouTube videos unless I know I'm going to enjoy making it. I don't write music unless I know I'm going to enjoy playing it live or recording it or mixing it or whatever. It's like, I'm not going to go out, like seek something that I don't really want to do if it's not going to get me the outcome that I want. Not to say that you shouldn't do that from time to time, but at least for me now, given all the hats and everything that's going on, it's very much like, what is the best use of my time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's good that you added that. Like, it doesn't matter what it is that gets you to do the thing, as long as you're doing the thing.
For sure.
I actually on the Zach Wilde episode of the podcast, we talked about that, and we talked about like kind of how his style is very like specific. It's like pentatonic based and pinch harmonics, and like he's got like these things that he does that like everyone knows him for, and he was talking about how that was a very specific decision when he was coming up because there were all these guitar players who like had like their own identity. And so he wanted to have something that he was known for. And not that he didn't like those other things, but like he loved the stuff that he plays. He loves it. And so it like both helped him craft an identity, and it's what kept him playing 10 hours a day. And what really matters is, does it like, what's going to get you to do the work? Like, is it this genre? Is it that genre? Is it routine-based practice? Is it learning songs? Is it right? Like, whatever it is, you should figure that out and then just throw yourself into it and don't worry about what other people do.
No, my actually, now that you mention it, I'm thinking about it. My practice routine lately, not that I don't view it as like, okay, from 12 to 1 today, I'm going to do this. It's kind of just like, oh, whenever I do it kind of thing. But like practicing standing up is like now a big thing. Yeah, like because like now like that we're playing more shows, I'm realizing that, oh my God, like I've been sitting down my whole life. I need to actually learn how to play this stuff standing up. And I've, again, like by doing it, like I'm noticing certain ways that my body is moving when I'm playing certain sections to kind of make it a little bit easier to hit that fret or to have this like big extended range chord or something like that. But if I didn't put myself in that situation, I never would have came to those conclusions. Yeah,
absolutely. You get better at doing it by actually doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And not just like talking about it. Yeah.
So Keyan, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
It's
really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Yeah, I'm glad we were able to link up and do this.
No, 100%. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Anytime, man. Anytime.